Welcome, everyone, to Week 8 of History 310 Online. This week we study slavery and the American Revolution. We've seen already this semester just how deeply the institution of slavery had embedded itself in the fabric of colonial American life and economy. Now, one might think that the American Revolution offered an opportunity to free enslaved people from their chains in the name of revolutionary liberty and equality. It was Thomas Jefferson, after all, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, the very defining statement of America's Revolution, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, including, Jefferson said, the fundamental rights of life and liberty. Yet we know that Thomas Jefferson was himself a slave owner. Like almost all American slave owners at the time of the American Revolution, he sought to keep a lid on the institution of slavery. In fact, it was not the American revolutionaries who sought to liberate and emancipate slaves, but rather the British themselves. Most memorably, it was the Royal Governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, who issued a famous proclamation offering freedom to all enslaved people who sided with the British during the War for Independence. When thousands of enslaved men and women accepted Dunmore's invitation and fled their plantations and farms throughout the Chesapeake Bay to join up with the British Army, many American revolutionaries realized that the cause of the American Revolution could not be tied to the emancipation and liberation of slaves. And slaveholding revolutionaries like Thomas Jefferson made it very clear that the American Revolution was not to be understood as an invitation for enslaved people to expect freedom. And as a result, the American nation that emerged from the Revolution was a nation still deeply involved in slave owning. It is certainly tempting to wonder what might have happened had the generation of revolutionaries, including Thomas Jefferson and his fellow Virginia slave owners, had they used the revolutionary call for liberty and the resulting War of Independence as an opportunity to emancipate their slaves. Or if Jefferson had argued publicly that in the Declaration the phrase all men are created equal meant all men, enslaved as well as free, and that race, furthermore, would be no barrier to political or legal equality. How would American history have gone differently as a result? Would there have been a civil war, for example? Would there have ever been a Ku Klux Klan or Jim Crow and racial segregation or lynching? Would there now be in our country the kind of conflict over race manifested in towns like Ferguson, Missouri and Charlottesville, Virginia? Charlottesville, remember, Thomas Jefferson's hometown, that we still entertain. Would there be any need for movement like Black Lives Matter or civil rights organizations like the NAACP? While we cannot ever know with certainty the answer to those questions, we can appreciate the devastating consequences of the American Revolution's turning its back on enslaved people. This week you will study a lecture on slavery in the American Revolution, and I want you to pay careful attention to the critical threshold points, the pivotal moments of decision where history might have gone in a different direction. And I want you to think that at those moments, when history might have taken a turn toward a fuller, more inclusive definition of liberty, but didn't, what the consequences would be for the future United States in the years that follow. Ask yourself what justification and rationale were offered by such men as Thomas Jefferson, men who were architects of American independence and who spoke loudly of liberty and equality, even as they insisted on maintaining slavery. What were their justifications and rationales for keeping men and women enslaved, and what have those justifications and rationales meant for America ever since, including in our own time? Now, I'll continue grading past work, but this week you will not have a new graded assignment to submit, so I suggest you give your time and attention to studying the lecture and doing the assigned reading. And of course, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. Have a great week, everyone.